Criminal offenders are often sent to drug or alcohol treatment as part of their sentence for their crimes. The public, they say, is safer when they're sober.
But what if they're not really being treated at all? The King 5 investigators have uncovered public records alleging secret payments and forged documents at one Tacoma counseling clinic.
Chris Ingalls joins us with the results of his nearly 6-month investigation.
Mark, Lori, these accusations are serious. Counselors taking bribes and addicts free to go with little or no treatment. And we've found that through the years, the Washington agencies that license clinics and counselors have heard ample warnings about this treatment center.
These should be doors that open to a new and better life for alcohol and drug addicts. A Change Counseling in Tacoma is a state-approved evaluation and treatment clinic.
He did not want to quit drinking. I begged him to quit drinking.
Kathy Bisbee's husband was ordered into counseling after a DUI arrest in Fife in 2013, according to court records.
And I was really counting on his classes to keep him in line.
He enrolled at A Change Counseling for a 3-month program of group therapy and drug and alcohol testing.
Weeks went by and I was thinking, well, why isn't he starting these classes? He should be starting these classes.
Kathy says her husband eventually admitted he wouldn't go at all. Kathy laid it all out in this request 2 years ago for a domestic violence protection order. She wrote that her husband paid money, cash, to get out of classes for alcohol treatment. Kathy says he paid Clarence Farmer, the owner of A Change, $1,700.
Well, when he came home and told me he didn't have to go to classes, I was very devastated.
Court records show that Farmer, who is also a licensed counselor, signed these documents and checked the box "in compliance," certifying to the judge that Kathy's husband attended all of his treatment classes.
Days circled, sober days.
Yeah. The days that are circled are his sober days, all the way here.
But Kathy kept her own records of her husband's drinking during the months he was supposed to be in treatment at A Change, and told the judge he was getting very drunk every night in her court petition.
But he drank almost every day in January and in February and in March. I just went in the bathroom and bawled because I knew our marriage was going to be over, because I knew he wouldn't quit drinking.
A tip from a law firm led the King 5 investigators to A Change Counseling. The firm said this employee solicited 2 of its clients for payments to make the hassles of treatment and testing go away. Barute Lampkin, known as Tay, is a state-licensed counselor. We saw nothing improper when our undercover crew visited A Change in September, but the law firm said it stopped sending clients to A Change because of Lampkin.
Tay Lampkin agreed to meet us for a formal TV interview at this Lakewood park. He never showed, but he did talk to me several weeks ago. In an interview I recorded on my iPhone.
Did you ever take money from any clients?
Never taken any money from any client ever. For any services, for any goods, for any exchanges. It's unethical. It's against the law, #1.
Lampkin denied that he asked for or accepted any kind of bribes from clients. But he said that this summer he learned that another employee at A Change did.
How much money did she take?
$3,000.
She took $3,000 from this guy?
Yes, she did.
Lampkin said, as a counselor, he was responsible for sending compliance reports to the court. He knew that specific client had not been to classes. He insists he was not part of the scheme.
But I guarantee if you ask any client, former or current, that's going to A Change Counseling Services, that I have never taken money for goods or services from anyone there, ever.
Tay Lampkin told me he has never taken money from any client.
Not true.
Not true.
Not true at all.
This client we'll call Alan says Lampkin hit him up for $600 after he claimed Alan had failed a urinalysis test. Alan thought the interlock device on his truck could prove that he hadn't been drinking, but he opted to pay Lampkin instead.
At the time, it seemed cheaper, you know, because if I had to fight it, I would have to get a lawyer again, and then you're talking about, could be thousands to fight that. And I just thought it was a cheaper way out, so that was maybe my, you know, maybe I shouldn't have done that.
Mr. Farmer?
Yeah, but I don't want to talk to you.
Mr. Farmer, there's a lot of serious questions we have to ask you. Have your employees been taking money?
Clarence Farmer told us he would not answer questions about his clinic on the advice of his lawyer. A Change Counseling has been licensed by the state for 10 years. It's one of several dozen public or privately owned counseling clinics to which Pierce County courts routinely refer offenders.
All rise. Superior Court is now in session, the Honorable.
Judge Ron Culpepper of the Pierce County Superior Court is the judge who required Kathy Bisbee's husband to receive treatment for alcohol abuse.
The system only works, it's only as good as the information we get. If we're getting false information, it undermines the system.
Judge Culpepper is the one who received monthly reports from A-Change, certifying that classes were completed, when Kathy says her husband was actually at home getting drunk.
What do you think about it?
Well, if that's happening out there, it should stop, and we should certainly not allow that clinic to participate at all. I would hope that we'd get some information about that from the prosecutor's office, have a hearing on it.
Kathy Bisbee's husband denied that he paid off anyone at A-Change. He called Bisbee vindictive in a phone interview and a liar. He said he's not had a drink since his 2013 DUI arrest. But this Pierce County court document tells a different story. Grainy photos from the interlock ignition device on his truck show him failing an alcohol breath test. He pled guilty to a probation violation in July of 2014.
This place is a joke. My husband was supposed to go to class.
Kathy took to posting on Facebook after authorities ignored her complaints about A-Change. Her husband was not a first-time offender. In 1989, he hit and killed a woman while drinking and drag racing.
This guy really needed help with his drinking, and he didn't get it, and now we're divorced.
You're watching King 5 News.
We start tonight with a King 5 investigation. You may remember this deadly crash on the 520 bridge.
The driver at fault caused another drunk driving crash just months before. So what happened in the days in between those two crashes?
The man behind the wheel attended a dubious Tacoma counseling clinic after the first crash. It's a place that King 5 has been investigating now for months.
Chris Ingalls reports on sobriety for sale and the innocent woman who may have paid for it with her life.
In this room, he played this song. Just This Way for his love, Morgan Fick Williams, in the Capitol Hill home they shared. The old jazz tune is called These Foolish Things Remind Me of You.
These little foolish things remind me of her, Yeah.
Jerry Esterly says Morgan was his world, and they traveled the world during their 7 years together.
This is Africa. We're in Uganda, and this is Morgan. We were in Hawaii.
There were many places yet to see.
We had a lot of places we were going to go, and we didn't get to go. Damn it, we didn't get to go. This is Paris, and
the easygoing melody of their lives together ended. On an early morning in April 2013, a wrong-way driver smashed into Morgan's sedan on the 520 bridge. Police found a bottle of Fireball whiskey in the back seat of his car.
We were just numb. I mean, it was just, I was in a daze. Doctor came in, and he didn't have to say anything because you knew by looking at him that she was gone.
Soon, Morgan's family learned about driver Michael Robertson's prior history. He'd plowed into the back of another car while driving drunk 3 months before he killed Morgan.
When you heard he'd been arrested just a few months earlier for DUI, what did you think?
Well, I was pissed off.
In the months before he killed Morgan, Robertson enrolled at A-Change Counseling Services in Tacoma. The clinic and at least 3 counselors are now under state investigation after King 5 reported accusations that they accepted bribes and falsified court records.
After that first DUI, did his drinking change?
I believe it got more severe.
Michael Robertson's mother said she saw no signs that counseling after his first drunk driving crash had an impact.
I believe if they were really doing their job, then they would have recognized immediately that he had a drinking problem because he didn't go a day without smelling like alcohol.
Several sources tell King 5 that this woman was Robertson's counselor at A-Change, Kathy Dastrup. State regulators know her well. At A-Change and another clinic in Spanaway called Abracadabra, state investigators determined Dastrup allowed other employees to forge her signature on important treatment documents.
The owner of a Doorway to Recovery in Lakewood said she left in a dispute over missing money.
And then this woman, I mean, what's with her?
She's licensed to this very day.
I think that's just absolutely appalling.
But there's more. We've learned that Dastrup is currently under investigation after a complaint from her former employer, A Brighter Tomorrow, in Lakewood. According to state records, the owner said Dastrup took approximately $100,000 in client billings. Employees reported she would work side deals with special clients and would falsify paperwork. Clinic managers said one client admitted she met Dastrup at this nearby Arby's to hand over cash payments instead of going to drug treatment sessions. DSHS, which licenses treatment clinics, substantiated the complaint allegations and found 28 patient files without documentation that Dastrup was treating them. Investigators couldn't be sure that those clients actually attended their court-ordered treatment. Sources tell us that 24 clients here have been forced to take their treatment over again. Kathy Dastrup refused to speak with us at her Puyallup home. In text messages, she said insane people are behind the accusations, and she's sure her name will be cleared. In a letter from his prison cell, drunk driver Michael Robertson told King 5 that A Change gave me a bad vibe. But he said, my crash and the detox caused some fogginess with my memory, and he couldn't recall his interactions with Dastrup.
Morgan got let down. Morgan got shafted here.
Jerry Esterly can't help but wonder about missed opportunities by state regulators to stop a clinic and a counselor with a history of serious complaints.
I'm madder there at that than I've ever been at Michael Robertson. I mean, I am pissed off about this, I'll tell you that.
Could Morgan's song have played on?
It was good life. It was good life, and it's gone.
Since we started reporting on A Change counseling, just about every court in Pierce County has banned offenders from using them. Also, the clinic is under state investigation. Kathy Dastrup, the counselor, is facing 2 investigations involving her work at 2 separate clinics. Twice in the past couple of months, she agreed to meet with us for on-camera interviews, and twice she backed out.
First, judges are taking action following King 5 investigation. They'll no longer accept treatment reports from a Tacoma counseling clinic.
That clinic faced accusations in public records. The counselors accepted bribes from clients and lied to judges about court-ordered treatment. Chris Engels joins us live in the studio with the fast-moving developments here.
Amanda, Greg, some of the people watching that report with the most concern were Pierce County's judges. And they're now trying to fix a breakdown in safeguards that should have caught these problems years ago. For 10 years, A Change Counseling Service has been evaluating and treating criminal offenders and sending progress reports to Pierce County courts. That stops now.
Going forward, we won't accept them as a treatment provider.
Presiding Judge Frank Cuthbertson wrote, evaluations conducted by A Change will no longer be accepted by Superior Court, in a letter mailed to judges, prosecutors, and defense attorneys.
Thank you.
Tacoma Municipal Court went a step further, saying it's considering filing a complaint with DSHS, which licenses clinics, regarding the problems encountered with A Change counseling.
And when folks are actually untreated, then it's a risk to the public safety, and so it's completely unacceptable and cause major concern for the court.
The judge says that concern,
why isn't he starting these classes,
came from a King 5 report earlier this month.
He cheated the system. He had enough money to do it.
This woman said her now ex-husband paid $1,700 to A Change owner Clarence Farmer and was permitted to skip all of his treatment sessions. But the judge in his DUI case was told the man was in compliance with his treatment in these reports signed by Farmer. Her ex isn't a first-time offender. He hit and killed a woman while driving drunk in 1989.
I knew he wasn't going to quit drinking. And I was really counting on his classes to keep him in line.
Her ex-husband denied making the payments and told King 5 he attended all his classes. We also reported on claims by a law firm that this A Change counselor solicited 2 of its clients for bribes. One of them, who did not want to be identified, said he paid $600 when the counselor claimed he failed a urinalysis test.
He was saying, well, we could take care of it, but I don't want to turn this in, but, maybe we can fix this, is basically what he said exactly. And I said, fix it? You mean like money?
Did you ever take money from any clients?
Never taken any money from any client ever.
In this brief interview, the counselor denied it and said he was fired when he reported that another A-Change employee had taken a $3,000 bribe from a client.
We have serious questions about their reliability, whether in fact they're doing what they say they're doing.
Judge Cuthbertson says offenders already enrolled at A-Change won't be forced to repeat their treatment at another clinic, but they should expect pointed questions about their A-Change experience at their next court appearance.
I would expect that people who are paying bribes and who haven't actually been in treatment are going to have a problem answering those questions.
The state departments of Health and Social and Health Services have investigated A-Change several times over the years. Judges want to know, why hasn't any of that state information been passed on to them?
All rise.
The judges say they were unaware that there were at least 4 investigations of A-Change in the last 6 years.
I'm surprised and a bit disappointed that we're at this stage of the game finding out how severe and acute the problems are with that particular agency.
The judge said they need to fix a breakdown in communication with the state, and even with other courts, which were not reporting to each other the concerns each had about A-Change counseling.
Hey, how we doing?
Good.
At least one A-Change client took action on his own, as seen in this cell phone video recorded by a friend.
Just give me my $250 back and I'll be good.
He's demanding a refund of the enrollment fee he paid last summer for 12 months of alcohol treatment.
You're trying to cause a lot of problems, huh? Why don't you go talk to Channel 5? I don't give a crap.
That's owner Clarence Farmer refusing to refund the money.
I was looking for help.
The client is Todd Bailey, who enrolled on his own, not because of a court order. And he says he became suspicious by his counselor's handling of a urinalysis test.
They gave me some paperwork, which was a UA that said I passed the UA, no problems, and they never even gave me a UA.
You're getting your money back for something you don't deserve, but okay.
After a heated argument, Farmer hands over half the money Todd Bailey is after.
Yeah, I'm going out of here. You got your money, you got everything. We're good. Hell out.
Bailey got a bit of money from A-Change, but he says no help.
I'm still drinking. I still drink. Not as much, but I still drink.
So you do have to wonder how many other clients out there are like him. All the state cases we talked about closed with what investigators called insufficient evidence, except one instance last year where A-Change was fined $1,000, and that is a maximum fine from the state for even the most serious violations. So there was all this troubling information out there kind of circling around about A-Change, but no one seemed to be able to pull it all together until now.
Well, it's convoluted, and you have to look at the bigger picture, but finally we're able to kind of piece it together. Now we'll see what kind of action is taken.
The judges say they got to fix that communication breakdown, and that's what they're doing now.
Okay.
State licensed drug counselors accused of faking treatment reports they send to the courts. And offenders sentenced to drug treatment may not be getting the help they need.
The King 5 investigators have already reported on a Tacoma clinic now under investigation by the state. Tonight, our team uncovers evidence the problem is much bigger.
Chris Ingalls is here to tell us how several South Sound clinics are now involved. Chris.
Lori, Mark, the public safety is at stake here. You don't want to be driving down the road with that repeat DUI offender that the judge thinks is in treatment coming the other way. The owner of these clinics strongly denies that he's done anything wrong, but we had lots of questions for him and state investigators who've known about problems at these clinics for years.
Things unraveled very, very quickly in her life, in our life. It was a very ugly and sad time.
Karina Fiedler couldn't figure it out. She had enrolled her kid sister, Crystal, in a drug treatment program after a DUI. But instead of getting better, her addiction to heroin grew stronger.
I would come to her and say, I know you're using, I found this, or I suspect that, or you did this. And she'd be like, well, my UA is clean. I'm clean. I'm in recovery.
She attended treatment sessions at Doorway to Recovery, a state-licensed clinic in Lakewood. While she was enrolled, The needle landed Crystal Zimbelman in a hospital bed.
The hospital is one of those moments where it was very real that I was going to die if I did not do something differently.
Something wasn't going right there at that facility for sure.
She pulled her sister out of Doorway to Recovery. It wasn't until Crystal sobered up a month later at a different treatment center that the younger sister confessed.
Well, I was under the influence and I had come in for a UA.
Crystal admitted to her sister that she got caught at Doorway with a dirty UA, a urinalysis test that detects drugs or alcohol. She said her Doorway counselor had a surprising response to her positive drug test.
And he said he had spoken with my attorney and came back into the office and spoke with me and said, we're going to keep this in-house. And so to me, I assumed that meant they weren't going to tell anyone.
Crystal's sister filed this complaint in December of 2010 with the State Department of Social and Health Services, saying the agency did not report a positive test to the court. DSHS never followed up with Crystal.
If they had called you, would you have talked to them?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. People are dying.
When a person tests positive for alcohol or drugs while they're in treatment, we have like a 24-hour time frame to get an incident report to the courts.
Jamie Stewart is a licensed drug counselor who isn't surprised by Crystal's story. That's because she used to work for John Dorman, the owner of 3 South Sound drug treatment clinics, including the one Crystal attended.
There was a lot of secrets going on there.
Stewart was the head counselor of this Dorman clinic, Abracadabra, in 2012. After she was hired, she learned the other counselors were interns and were not licensed to sign court documents certifying that offenders were in treatment.
They were actually cutting my name off of something I had signed and placing it on a printer and scanning it like that.
They were using your signature.
They were using my signature, photocopying my signature.
She says her name and title were being used to tell the courts that offenders were in compliance, even though she'd never actually treated them. That was surprising because the licensed counselor she replaced at Abracadabra, Kathy Dastrup, had been caught by state regulators a year earlier in the same type of scheme. A DSHS investigation found extensive documentation proving that Dastrup allowed intern Andy Farmer to sign her name to important treatment documents. Why were they doing it?
Well, I found out that they were selling programs. They were having people come in and they were taking their money. They were not even attending treatment.
So they were taking money on the side.
Correct.
But not really treating those clients.
Exactly.
In this 2011 DSHS complaint that was not sustained, Andy Farmer was accused of keeping patients off file.
He told me, that's my office, that's my files, and don't touch them. Stay out of there.
They were secret files.
They were secret files.
Andy Farmer is the apple who may not have fallen far from the tree. His father, Clarence Farmer, owns A-Change Counseling Services in Tacoma. 3 counselors here are now under state investigation after King 5 reported accusations that they took bribes and faked treatment records. The family tree also includes John Dorman, a disbarred attorney who is Clarence Farmer's son-in-law. Dorman's 3 clinics, Doorway to Recovery, Abracadabra, and A-Change Counseling Renton, enroll hundreds of addicts each year.
The King 5 investigators have been reporting on the disturbing allegations at a handful of clinics since March. Tonight, new questions about the state agency that investigates those troubled clinics.
Chris Ingalls reports on a case where a dangerous driver was allowed to return back to the road.
This is where the patients can relax before group or during breaks.
The building on this Spokane street corner is evidence of an epidemic.
We have 2 groups during each day.
At Lakeside Recovery Center, 80% of the patients treated in these rooms are here for heroin or opiate addiction. The privately owned clinic receives lots of public funding because many of its patients can't afford treatment.
Well, this is our downstairs group room. We also have one upstairs.
But Lakeside, run by Executive Director Chris Mullen, has its own serious struggles. In a report issued by the Department of Social and Health Services this year, inspectors uncovered 6 positive drug tests from clients that were not reported to the court. Many of Lakeside's patients are defendants sentenced to drug treatment, and counselors are required to report drug-positive urine tests to the court.
They had some problems with the way UAs were not being reported at Lakeside Recovery, including yours.
I didn't know that.
You didn't know that?
Nope.
Sources familiar with the state investigation say client Mark Tatum failed 5 drug tests in his 5 months at Lakeside last year. The report, identifying him as patient 1, shows positive tests for opiates, cannabis, even methamphetamine went unreported by his Lakeside counselor.
They're looking for me to rat them off for something that they did wrong, and I'm not aware of it.
Even worse, the report shows that the counselor completed a DOL form that said Tatum was in compliance and should get his driver's license back. The form was mailed to the Department of Licensing on the same day the counselor received this drug test notice that Tatum was positive for opiates and pot. The clinic allowed a man with 5 prior DUIs to return to the road.
Are you free to drive now, as far as you know? Yeah, you're driving now.
Yes, I'm sober and straight, and I feel good.
Lakeside Recovery Center has been under intense scrutiny since failing state investigations 3 years ago. The DSHS inspector who uncovered the unreported drug tests revoked Lakeside's license, arguing that patient and public safety was at stake. Not surprisingly, Lakeside's lawyers said this greatly harmed Lakeside, and they fought back. What is surprising is what the state did next.
They seemed legit to me. I mean, you know, classes were good and informative.
DSHS and the Attorney General's office dropped all findings involving Mark Tatum and agreed not to report them to any other agency that could investigate or prosecute such findings. They allowed Lakeside to keep its license and dropped all fines except for $250. The written settlement even says the 2 investigators who uncovered the unreported drug tests will not be present or involved in future inspections of the clinic. They've been kicked off the case.
This is primarily for...
Lakeside Executive Director Chris Mullen agreed to an on-camera interview after this tour of his facility, but later backed out. He told us that state investigators got several facts wrong, including drug tests that were reported to the court. If that's so, it's not reflected in the hundreds of pages of documents in the case file.
DSHS's handling of the case here in Spokane is similar to another treatment agency that we've reported on in Western Washington. Is there a pattern?
DSHS pulled 2 investigators off a probe into a chain of Pierce County treatment clinics featured in our Sobriety for Sale investigations.
The bottom line is...
2 former employees told us that counselors were taking cash payments from clients and lying to the court that they were in treatment. In another case, DSHS rescinded a fine in a complaint filed by this former heroin addict. She said her clinic concealed her positive drug test while she was in treatment.
Morally and ethically, it is absolutely wrong.
The common thread in all these cases is that the clinic's lawyers threatened legal action. Clinic investigations are conducted by a little-known DSHS agency called the Division of Behavioral Health and Recovery. The cases we've identified raise questions about how effectively DBHR regulates 570 licensed treatment clinics statewide. In a July interview, DBHR Deputy Director Dennis Malmer denied that clinics' lawyers are shutting down state investigations.
We don't stop the investigations at all, but we change out staff members, and we've done that in the past and continue to do that. I mean, it wasn't because somebody sought legal counsel or not. Some people do and some people don't.
It's Malmer's signature on this settlement with Lakeside Recovery in Spokane, which allowed chronic DUI offender Mark Tatum to stay on the road to this day.
I think that's absolutely abominable. I think that they should definitely be held responsible.
We interviewed Kathleen at her home while we were in Spokane trying to track down Tatum.
Very shocked to hear that places like Lakeside that he trusted to help him through this process have not been above board.
She's concerned that Tatum has a license to drive.
And it's not in Spokane's best interest, especially since he's still driving. It's not in anybody's best interest.
She would know. Until recently, Kathleen was Tatum's wife. She's not a bitter, vengeful ex, just saddened by the cost of his drug and alcohol use.
Really wish Mark could be the wonderful, beautiful person that I know he is.
Guiding people out of the fog of addiction. It's supposed to be what treatment clinics and the agencies that regulate them are all about.
Definitely. It is all Mark's fault. He abused the system. But I'm sorry, now the system is abusing Mark right back by not reporting those UAs.
I want to be clear here, there is no suggestion in any documents that we've seen that Lakeside counselors are taking bribes. Investigators say it appears that the staff at Lakeside is inexperienced and overwhelmed. Here in Western Washington, DBHR is investigating counselors at 5 clinics who are suspected of taking bribes and not reporting the accurate information to the court.